In this tutorial, we'll show you how to create animations, as well as how to apply them effectively to different interface elements. Let's get started. We have currently created two separate screens, and on both we will apply different animations to the UI elements. On the first screen, I designed a button that we will implement using a combination of scaling and opacity animations. The goal is for it to expand upon clicking and display some text. This text has already been placed inside the container. However, it is currently not visible because the container is smaller in size, causing it to clip the content inside. On the second screen, we will create an animation related to a menu button. When the button is activated, the options will appear with a motion animation, dynamically emerging on the interface. Let's open the animation panel and begin creating the animation. To create an animation, add a new one and give it a name so it can be easily identified later. As the first step, set the button's initial size. For this, it is sufficient to define the width value. At the beginning of the animation, create a keyframe that captures the starting state. This will be the point from which the scaling begins. Next, move the timeline to the desired time position and adjust the width value to the size you want as the final state of the animation. Once this is done, assign an appropriate easing to the animation to make the motion feel more natural and smooth. For example, you can choose an ease in-out setting, which provides a gentle and balanced transition between the start and end states. Great! This completes the button's scaling animation. As we can see, the icon button stays aligned to the left due to the correct flex layout settings, and as the button expands, the label also becomes visible. However, to achieve a more aesthetic and smoother transition, it is worth applying an opacity animation to it. At the beginning of the animation, set the opacity value to 0 so that the label is not visible. Then, at the end of the timeline, set the value to 100%, allowing the text to gradually appear as the button expands. Finally, set an appropriate easing curve here as well. For example, ease in-out to ensure the animation remains consistent and feels natural. Great! This completes the animation setup. Another useful step is that we can also create animations as separate scenes, making them easily reusable later across multiple elements. For example, let's create the opacity animation as a separate animation. Set the same values, from 0% to 100%, and then, in the target settings, assign it to any desired element. This effectively gives us a reusable layer animation that can later be applied to almost any UI element. I will now assign this to the label and remove the opacity from the original animation, as it becomes redundant in this setup. Now we're done, let's set up the event so that the animations run when the button is pressed. For the press trigger, add a play animation action. First, select the scaling animation, then set its corresponding target, meaning the element on which the animation will be executed. Next, add the opacity animation as well and assign it to the appropriate target in the same way. Once that's done, start play mode to test it. The result: the button smoothly expands and the label gradually appears thanks to the opacity animation. In the second design, we will create a position animation for the 3 option buttons. Let's create a new animation and give it a descriptive name. In this case, we will animate the X and Y position values. The starting state is currently 0, so we can create the keyframes right away. Then move to the end of the animation and reposition the elements to their desired final positions, where they should come to rest. The goal is for the elements to emerge from the center of the menu button, so initially they should be placed at the center, underneath the main button. In this default state, they will not be visible, only when activated. Repeat this process for all 3 option buttons so that their animations start at the same time and reach their final positions simultaneously. Once that's done, set an appropriate easing curve to make the motion smoother and more natural. With that, the position animations are complete. We can now assign the event that triggers these animations to the main button. Again, add a play animation action to the press trigger, and then select the position animations you created. In the target field, set the appropriate option buttons that the animations should apply to. Here, you also have the option to include the previously created opacity animation. allowing you to achieve an even more refined and visually consistent animation effect. This opacity animation can even be applied to all three option buttons. To do this, simply assign the animation to each affected element via the target settings. This way, all buttons will appear with the same transition, ensuring a consistent user experience. Thanks for following along in this video. If you enjoyed the content, leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss the upcoming parts.